Betrayal is not just an action, it is a poison that seeps silently into the soul, cracking the deepest foundations of trust long before the victim even realizes they've been targeted. It arrives quietly, wearing the mask of loyalty, disguised in smiles, promises, and soft-spoken assurances, and when it finally strikes, it doesn't simply wound. It detonates everything the heart once believed in. That is the moment when a man or woman learns the cruelest truth life can deliver. The enemy you feared was never outside the door. They were standing beside you, breathing the same air, speaking the same lies, waiting for the perfect moment to twist the knife. The pain of betrayal cuts deeper than any blade ever forged, because it destroys something far more fragile than flesh. It shatters trust. Trust is sacred. It is a contract of the soul, forged through time, tears, and shared battles. And when someone you loved, respected, or bled for breaks that contract, the destruction is total. It is a collapse of everything you built with them. Everything you dreamed with them. Everything you once thought you could depend on. You don't just lose a person. You lose the version of yourself that believed they were worth trusting. And that is exactly what happened to the hero. One moment they stood shoulder to shoulder with the person they thought was ally, family, partner, someone who had walked every dark road with them. They believed in this person, defended them, fought for them, sacrificed for them. They let their guard down, exposed their weaknesses, shared their fears, and handed over the blueprint to their own heart. It was a decision made from love, loyalty, or friendship, but in the wicked world of betrayal, it became the first step toward destruction. Then came the truth, cruel, cold, merciless. It didn't whisper, it roared. It tore through reality like a storm ripping roofs off homes. The hero learned that the one they trusted had been plotting behind their back, poisoning their reputation, laughing at their hopes, and watching every struggle with wicked satisfaction. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, calculated, executed with the precision of someone who had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when that moment finally came, the traitor didn't hesitate. They sabotaged everything. They manipulated every weakness. They stabbed not with a knife, but with secrets, rumors, and betrayal dressed in truth. They destroyed the hero's name, their friendships, their dreams. They watched the world turn against them, enjoyed the hero's fall, and walked away without a flicker of guilt. The hero wasn't simply betrayed. They were humiliated, erased, pushed into darkness by someone who once claimed to care. But what hurts the most is not the act itself. It is the memory of trust. Every smile now feels like a lie. Every moment of laughter becomes a weapon. Every shared secret becomes a chain around the hero's neck. And that realization crushes them from the inside. It makes them question their own judgment, their own heart, their own worth. They replay every moment in their mind, searching for signs they should have seen, red flags they ignored, warnings they brushed aside. They punish themselves long before they think of punishing the one who betrayed them. The shock is paralyzing at first. Then the hurt arrives, raw, brutal, overwhelming. It's the kind of pain that steals sleep, steals breath, steals the innocence of believing that people are naturally good. It burns through the heart, leaving ashes where trust once lived. But from those ashes rises something powerful, something dangerous. A new emotion forged from pain, resolve. The hero doesn't rise right away, no. They sit in the darkness, broken, bleeding, wondering why it happened. But betrayal has a strange way of transforming people. It strips them of their illusions and exposes the truth of who they are beneath the hurt. Slowly, the pain hardens. Tears dry. Fear fades. What remains is something sharper than steel, the realization that they will never let themselves be broken this way again. And with that realization comes the first spark of revenge. It is not loud. It is not violent. It is quiet, calm, like the air right before a hurricane. The hero begins to understand that betrayal is not the end of their story. It is the ignition. It awakens the part of them that had been asleep, the part that remembers their strength, their worth, their fire. Betrayal becomes the catalyst that strips away weakness and leaves behind something unstoppable. But even as this transformation begins, the wound remains. Because betrayal carries a special kind of torment, the torment of knowing that the person who broke you still walks free, unpunished, unscarred, without fear or remorse. They stole your peace. They shattered your identity. They walked away as if your pain was nothing more than collateral damage. And that thought keeps burning inside the hero like embers that refuse to die. Those embers become the fuel. The betrayal becomes the blueprint. Every flashback becomes a lesson. Every scar becomes a map of where they fell, and where they will rise again. The hero begins to gather themselves piece by piece, not to forgive, not to forget, but to become someone the betrayer will wish they had feared from the beginning. When someone you love betrays you, they don't just create an enemy, they forge an entirely new version of you. Stronger, colder, smarter, and far more dangerous. The hero may have been naive once, too trusting, too open-hearted, but betrayal transforms them into someone who no longer walks blindly. They now see the world without illusions, without hesitation, without mercy for those who cross them. And deep inside, beneath the pain, beneath the scars, beneath the rage, one truth grows stronger with every passing day. The betrayer thinks they won. They think the hero has fallen forever. They think the story is over. But betrayal has written a different ending. A darker, sharper, more powerful ending. Because the moment a hero realizes the enemy was standing beside them all along is the moment the hero stops being a victim and becomes a storm. And when that storm returns, it does not knock. It does not warn. There comes a moment in every broken life when the world seems to turn its back so completely that even breathing feels like a battle. That is the moment when the hero, abandoned, wounded, stripped of dignity, lies on the cold ground believing that this is how their story ends. But some souls are forged differently. Some hearts refuse to stay buried beneath betrayal and defeat. When the hero was left for dead, it wasn't just their body that was shattered. It was their belief in the goodness of others, their faith in loyalty, their trust in humanity. They tasted the bitterness of abandonment, felt the silence of the world closing in on them, and experienced the cruelty of those who walked away as if their life meant nothing. Yet in that void, in that suffocating darkness, a spark ignited. The hero realized that if the world wouldn't give them a hand, they would claw their way out using their own blood-soaked determination. The rise never begins with glory. It begins with pain, slow, agonizing, unrelenting pain that forces the hero to confront their own weaknesses. They drag themselves up piece by piece, limb by limb, thought by thought. Every breath becomes a promise. Every step becomes rebellion. They remember those who laughed when they fell, those who whispered that they would never recover, those who enjoyed watching them break. These memories burn in their chest like fuel thrown into a fire. Their rise is built on rage, on humiliation, on the unforgettable vision of themselves lying helpless, discarded like trash by the very people they once trusted. The world thought it was burying them. It didn't know it was planting a seed. Slowly, the hero rebuilds, not to survive, but to conquer. They train their mind until every doubt transforms into strategy. They sharpen their instincts until fear becomes their weapon. They strengthen their body until it becomes a reminder of what endurance truly means. Every scar becomes a badge. Every bruise becomes a chapter. Every setback becomes momentum. They rise not as the person they once were, but as the version they were always meant to be. Fiercer, colder, unstoppable. The world underestimated them. It believed their silence meant defeat, that their absence meant weakness. But silence is a blade, and absence is preparation. As the hero grows stronger, they begin to see truth with crystal clarity. The ones who betrayed them are not giants. They are cowards hiding behind lies, feeding off power they never earned. The hero sees the cracks in their enemy's foundation. They observe quietly, calculating every weakness, memorizing every flaw, preparing for the day they reclaim everything that was taken from them. The rise after being left for dead is not dramatic. It is strategic. It is disciplined. It is surgical. They move like a shadow, gathering strength where no one expects them to, healing wounds no one believes they can, rebuilding a future the enemy swore they could never have again. And then comes the shift, the moment the hero feels power returning, the moment the old fear melts away. The moment they realize they no longer crave survival, they crave dominance. They don't just want their life back. They want justice carved into the bones of those who tried to destroy them. They want every lie exposed, every coward unmasked, every betrayal burned to ash. Their rise is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is emotional. It is the rebirth of someone who no longer needs approval, validation, or forgiveness. The hero who rises from the ashes is not soft, they are not trusting, they are not fragile, they are fire. When they finally stand tall, stronger than ever, the world doesn't recognize them. The same people who once looked down on them now feel a chill when their name is spoken. The same traitors who once smirked at their downfall now glance over their shoulders with a fear they cannot explain. Because somewhere deep inside, they sense it. They feel the shift in the air. They know the hero they buried is coming back, not to beg, not to apologize, not to recover, but to take everything owed to them. The rise after being left for dead is the most dangerous rise of all. It creates a person with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. A person who has already tasted death will never fear life again. And so the hero steps back into the world, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a storm wearing human skin. The ones who betrayed them made one fatal mistake. They should have made sure the hero never stood up again. Because now, every breath the hero takes is a countdown to the reckoning, and this time, the world will not see them fall. This time, the world will watch them rise so high that even the shadows bow at their feet. There are promises spoken in daylight, soft, hopeful, filled with good intentions and fragile dreams. And then there are vows made in the dark, born from pain, carved by betrayal, sealed by fire. A vow in the dark is not a whisper of hope, it is a roar of destiny. It is the moment when a wounded heart transforms into a weapon. As the hero stood in the shadows, haunted by the memory of betrayal, trembling with rage and heartbreak, they felt the universe pull a line straight through their soul. Something inside them snapped, but not in defeat. It snapped in clarity. They finally understood that forgiveness was a luxury they could no longer afford, that mercy was a privilege their enemies no longer deserved. And so they made a vow, cold, sharp, unbreakable: I will return, and they will remember my name. This vow became more than a statement. It became oxygen. Every breath the hero took afterward was filled with purpose. Every heartbeat echoed with the rhythm of revenge. The vow grew in their mind like a wildfire, spreading through every memory, every scar, every corner of their identity. They no longer existed to survive. They existed to fulfill a promise forged in pain. A vow made in the dark carries a special kind of power, because it comes from a place where illusions no longer live. The hero saw the world without filters, without naivety, without lies. They saw the truth of betrayal, and truth has a way of shaping a person into something unstoppable. The vow became the compass guiding their every step. When exhaustion dragged them down, they heard the vow like a war drum pushing them forward. When fear crept in, the vow burned through it like fire swallowing paper. When loneliness surrounded them, the vow whispered that revenge was a better companion than any false friend who ever betrayed them. The vow turned their weakness into strategy, their sorrow into steel, their anger into discipline. They trained harder than ever before. They sharpened their mind until it became a weapon the enemy couldn't predict. They rebuilt their spirit using the vow as both foundation and fuel. Everything they did, every decision, every move, every inhale, was tied to the promise made in darkness. A vow like this changes a person. It strips away their softness and replaces it with purpose. It eliminates every distraction, every doubt, every fear. It makes them cold in all the right ways and dangerous in all the necessary ones. The hero no longer cared about past attachments or old loyalties. They no longer cared about who approved or who doubted. Their world became focused, narrowed, sharpened to a single point: make them pay. And yet, this vow wasn't born from hatred alone. It was born from justice denied, from truth buried, from wounds that refused to heal until the betrayers faced consequences carved into the very ground they walked on. As the vow grew, so did the heroes' resolve. They envisioned the moment they would return, the moment the betrayers would see them alive, powerful, unbroken. They imagined the expressions of shock, the fear crawling across guilty faces, the realization that the person they tried to destroy was not only still alive, but rising higher than ever. The vow promised a reckoning, and the hero embraced that destiny with every ounce of strength they had left. They didn't want revenge that was chaotic or impulsive. They wanted revenge delivered with precision, with strategy, with poetic justice. The kind that leaves an echo through time. A vow made in the dark is not just a promise to destroy enemies. It is a promise to rebuild oneself into something the world can no longer break. It is the hero's rebirth. It is the moment they stop being the victim of the story and become the force that rewrites it. The vow becomes the heart inside their chest, beating louder every day, reminding them that fate isn't given, it is taken. And the hero is ready to take everything back. When the hero finally steps into the light again, the vow burns in their eyes. It radiates from their presence. People feel the shift in the air when they walk by. The world senses something dangerous, something powerful, something relentless. Because a vow made in the dark never dies. It grows. It sharpens. It waits. And when the hero finally faces their enemies, the vow will speak for them, stronger than any weapon, louder than any threat, and far more terrifying than any scream. The betrayers believed the darkness swallowed the hero. But they forgot one truth. Some people don't die in the dark. They are born there. The enemy's hidden empire is never built in the sunlight. It thrives in shadows, in silence, in places where truth is buried beneath layers of deception. For a long time, the hero believed their enemy was nothing more than a single person. A traitor with a wicked heart and a liar's smile. But betrayal has a way of opening eyes, of tearing away the fog that once softened reality. As the hero rises from the ashes of their own downfall, they begin to see what they once overlooked. They start to understand that the betrayal was not an isolated act, it was the visible crack of a much larger, much darker foundation. The enemy wasn't just cruel, they were powerful. And their power had roots that reached deeper than the hero ever imagined. Every step the hero takes toward uncovering the truth feels like peeling back a rotten, decaying wall. Behind the first layer lies a second. Behind the second, a third. And each layer reveals something more twisted than the last. The enemy's empire was built on corruption. Quiet deals in closed rooms, bribes exchanged under tables, alliances forged through fear and manipulation. It was a kingdom constructed not by earning respect but by forcing submission. The hero, once blind to this darkness, now sees it clearly. Every connection, every secret handshake, every forced silence. It was all part of a web carefully spun to protect the enemy and suffocate anyone who dared to rise against them. The deeper the hero investigates, the more horrifying the truth becomes. The enemy didn't just betray them, they betrayed countless others. Lives ruined, careers destroyed, families shattered, futures stolen. Every person who stood in the enemy's way was crushed, not by accident, but by design. And now, as the hero digs through the buried ruins of those lives, they feel a new kind of fire igniting inside them, a fire not just fueled by personal vengeance, but by justice long denied. They realize they weren't the only victim, they were simply the one who survived long enough to expose the truth. The hero moves quietly, strategically, becoming a ghost in the enemy's empire. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they act. And with every secret uncovered, their resolve grows sharper. They find hidden documents, encrypted accounts, names buried in ledgers, the kind of evidence that doesn't just wound a person. It destroys an entire network. They learn about the enemy's alliances, their blackmail, their extortion, the way they manipulated people into silence. The empire was built on fear, and fear kept it alive. But fear is a fragile currency. Once people learn the truth, fear becomes a weapon that can be turned back on the one who created it. As the hero continues to uncover the empire, they feel the weight of every lie that was used to bury them. They see how their own downfall was engineered, controlled, mapped out like a chessboard. The enemy didn't just betray them. They orchestrated every detail, pulling the strings from behind the curtain while pretending to be innocent. They used connections to destroy the hero's reputation, used influence to turn allies into enemies, used money to erase facts and rewrite truths. No wonder the hero fell so hard. They weren't fighting one person. They were fighting an entire machine built to crush resistance. But what the enemy doesn't realize is that every machine has a weak point. And the hero, fueled by betrayal and vengeance, begins to find those weak points one by one. They start exposing the truth to the right people, slipping evidence into the hands of those who were once afraid to speak. They ignite whispers, stir doubt, plant seeds of rebellion. The empire begins to shake, not because of brute force, but because truth, once revealed, cannot be contained. Those who were once loyal to the enemy begin to question. Those who were once silent begin to remember. Those who were once afraid begin to see a path out of the darkness. The hero moves like a shadow through the empire's cracks, gathering the stories of those who suffered before them. Each story becomes another stone to throw at the empire's glass walls. Each uncovered secret becomes another reason to strike harder. And with every discovery, the hero transforms. They no longer walk with hesitation, they walk with purpose. They no longer see themselves as a victim, but as the catalyst that will bring the empire crashing down. The enemy senses something is wrong, but they are too arrogant to understand the danger. They believe their empire is unbreakable, protected by too many lies, too many allies, too much manipulation. They think the hero is weak, still wounded, still lost. They underestimate the power of someone who has nothing left to lose and everything left to expose. They underestimate the force of truth sharpened by anger. They underestimate the storm gathering quietly behind them. The hero finally uncovers the empire's core, the truth that ties everything together. It is the secret the enemy would burn the world to protect. It is the one truth that, if revealed, would collapse the entire structure they spent years building. This truth becomes the hero's weapon, their proof, their revenge sharpened into a blade. And holding that truth, the hero feels something shift inside them. The anger becomes clarity. The pain becomes strength. The betrayal becomes power. Now the hero is no longer walking through the enemy's empire. They are dismantling it. They dismantle it through exposure, through precision, through every horrifying truth they drag out of the shadows and into the light. The empire trembles, the enemy panics, and the hero, once broken, now stands above the ruins of lies and corruption with unshakable resolve. Because exposing the enemy's hidden empire is not just about vengeance. It is about reclaiming every piece of themselves that was stolen. Every dream crushed. Every truth buried. Every scar earned. This is not just revenge. This is justice extracted from the bones of the corrupt. This is the moment the hero stops being hunted and becomes the hunter. And with every layer peeled back, with every secret dragged into the open, the hero prepares for the final blow. The enemy will fall, not because the hero wants it, but because truth demands it. The empire built in darkness will collapse in the light, and the hero will stand at the center of that destruction, not just as the one who was betrayed, but as the one who exposed the rot hidden beneath the surface of power. This is the beginning of the end. The empire has been seen, the lies have been uncovered, and now there is no place left for the enemy to hide. Justice, true justice, does not roar, does not scream, does not chase blindly with emotion burning through its veins. Real justice moves with silence, with strategy, with a coldness sharpened by betrayal. When the hero reaches this stage of the journey, they are no longer fueled by the chaos of pain. They are fueled by clarity, by calculation, by a ruthless understanding that every action must be measured, Every strike must be intentional. Every step must be placed exactly where it hurts the enemy most. This is not the kind of justice that comes from courts or laws. This is the justice that rises from the ashes of survival, the justice that emerges when someone has been betrayed, humiliated, broken, and left to die. It is justice that speaks through the grinding of bones, the exposing of lies, the strategic dismantling of an empire built on corruption. The hero becomes a shadow wearing purpose, a ghost holding the blueprint of destruction. They no longer move with emotion clouding their judgment. They now move like a blade, silent, sharp, untraceable. Every decision is a stroke of vengeance carved with intelligence. They strike not when angry, but when ready, and that readiness makes them unstoppable. The first blow is not loud, it is a whisper that cuts deeper than any scream. They target the enemy's resources, the alliances they rely on, the foundations that support their influence. The hero sabotages their power in ways that cannot be traced back. They expose lies one by one, unraveling the enemy's reputation like pulling threads from a once untouchable tapestry. People who once bowed before the enemy now step back with uncertainty, realizing the cracks in the empire are widening. The hero uses precision like a surgeon uses a scalpel, cutting only what is necessary, removing the infection without destroying the whole body of the battle. They don't leave fingerprints, they leave consequences. And as the enemy stumbles, confused by the invisible assaults, the hero steps deeper into their strategy, pulling strings the enemy didn't know were attached, flipping alliances, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of those who once feared the enemy. Justice becomes an art form, slow, merciless, inevitable. The hero delivers it piece by piece. A lost partner here, a failed deal there, a leaked secret, a collapsed relationship, a ruined reputation, a vanished supporter. The enemy begins to feel the walls closing in, yet they cannot see who is controlling them. They sense a presence, a threat, a storm forming behind them, but they cannot turn fast enough to stop it. That is the power of precision. Fear without visibility, danger without noise. The hero's moves escalate with time, each one more devastating than the last. They know the enemy's patterns, vulnerabilities, fears, and weaknesses. They exploit them ruthlessly. If the enemy values power, they strip it away. If they value influence, they corrupt it. If they value allies, they turn them into enemies. If they value control, the hero twists it into chaos. The justice delivered is poetic, surgical, unstoppable. There are no wild confrontations, no sloppy attacks, no emotional outbursts, only outcomes, only results. Only destruction crafted with the patience of someone who understands that revenge is not about speed. It is about certainty. And the hero is certain. They strike with the precision of someone who has lived through hell and refuses to return. Their actions carry the weight of every tear shed, every lie endured, every scar earned. The enemy, once confident and arrogant, now wakes with fear instead of power. They lose sleep, they lose allies. They lose the illusion that they are untouchable. The fall becomes unavoidable, and the hero watches it unfold with calm eyes, knowing that justice delivered slowly is justice delivered completely. By the time the hero stands ready for the final strike, the enemy is already halfway defeated by the hero's invisible hand. That is justice in its coldest form, not passionate, not impulsive, but delivered exactly the way the enemy delivered betrayal, without hesitation, without mercy, without warning. It is the kind of justice that leaves the enemy wondering not how the hero struck, but when the hero became smarter, stronger, and more dangerous than they ever imagined. And that is the moment they finally understand the truth. The hero is no longer the victim. They are the reckoning. Victory in a revenge story is never a simple moment of triumph. It is a transformation, a crossing of a line that can never be uncrossed. When the hero finally stands before the enemy, face to face, power against power, truth against lies, they are not the same person who once begged for honesty, who once trusted too deeply, who once bled for the wrong people. They have become something harder, something sharper, something carved from fire and rebuilt with purpose. The final confrontation does not just end the enemy, It ends a chapter of the hero's soul. When the hero takes that last step forward, carrying every scar, every memory, every night spent healing in silence, they know this is the moment everything has led to. The enemy, once towering, now stands exposed, stripped of their influence, trembling beneath the weight of their own downfall. They see the storm in the hero's eyes, the fire burning with the intensity of someone who has seen darkness and returned stronger. And in that final moment, the enemy realizes the mistake they made the very instant they betrayed the hero. They created their own executioner. The victory is not chaos, it is clarity. It is not rage, it is resolve. The hero does not scream, does not strike wildly, does not lose control. Their victory is delivered with the calm of someone who has already won long before the final blow was struck. Every downfall the enemy endured, every lost ally, every ruined deal, every exposed secret, was part of the victory already unfolding in silence. The final act is simply the closing of a story that was destined to end this way. When the hero chooses how the enemy falls, they do so with precision, whether it is the exposure of their final secret, the destruction of their last source of power, or the confrontation that forces them to face every sin they committed. And as the enemy collapses under the weight of truth, the hero feels a shift, not joy, not relief, but transformation. Revenge has a price, and the hero pays it willingly. Because victory is not about destroying the enemy. It is about reclaiming identity. It is about standing in the ruins of betrayal and realizing that nothing, not even the deepest wound, had the power to kill their spirit. The hero discovers strength they never knew they had. They feel freedom where chains once held them. They feel power where weakness once lived. The transformation is silent but absolute. They look at the fallen enemy and understand that this moment does not erase the past. It rewrites it. They are no longer defined by betrayal. They are defined by resilience. They are no longer the broken one. They are the one who rose, the one who fought, the one who conquered. And yet, victory is complicated. When the dust settles, the hero stands alone with the truth that revenge changes a person forever. They feel the fire still burning inside, but now it is no longer destructive. It is controlled, channeled, powerful. The world looks different. They look different. They did not just end the enemy. They ended the version of themselves who once accepted lies, who once tolerated disrespect, who once believed love or loyalty could blind them. That person is gone. The hero walks away victorious, but transformed, stronger, wiser, untouchable. Their eyes carry the memory of everything they endured, but also the certainty that no betrayal, no enemy, no empire built on lies will ever break them again. They leave the battlefield not as a survivor, not as a revenge seeker, but as someone reborn in fire. Someone who learned that the price of vengeance is evolution. Someone who knows that victory doesn't just change circumstances, it changes the soul. And as they step into their new future, leaving the ruins of their enemy behind, one truth becomes undeniable: the victory was never about destroying the enemy. It was about becoming someone so strong that no enemy will ever rise against them again. If this story hit you hard, if it lit a fire inside you, then don't leave without hitting the slam that subscribe button and joining this unstoppable journey. Your support fuels the next chapter, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.